Guys, I've got Bass Tadros here. Bassem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bassem's my full name.
yeah.
Bass is perfectly fine. I've gone by it most of my life.
Beautiful, beautiful. We were just talking a bit earlier about how important it is to pronounce people's names right, and my last name is a real trip up. It's a tough one. Why don't we try and get Bass to say it for me?
It's Kyle Spider. I don't know. I can't remember the rest of it.
Spider-Man rides. No. Yeah.
007.
007, yeah, yeah. No, it's Spyrides, so it's Spy Rides.
Spyrides.
That's how it's like
Spyrides.
spelled. Yeah, but it's Spyrides. Yeah.
Spyrides.
Yeah.
Spyrides.
Yeah, it's a real hang-up, which is it's good. It creates a bit of flavour.
I love these Greek names, and the funny thing is, the Greek language is very phonetic.
Yes.
So how it's spelt is how it's read.
Yep.
But when you translate it to English, it can still have its indifference.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So it's a bit interesting.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's and every last name is ESOS.
Yep.
AS. Like it's just
They have a theme.
Exactly, their theme. So we share that in common. Bassem and Spyrides.
Tadros, yeah. Spyrides.
Yes, Bassem Tadros, yes. And I just wanted to ask you a few questions, mate, just about, so you're a business leader, you're a community leader, and you are now getting into politics, which is quite interesting.
Yes, well, look, I've never really imagined myself getting into politics. Funny enough, I was speaking with a lovely lady who's a senior councillor in my region, and we were just having a chat about my history, what I've done, and she said, you've always been in politics, it's just a different organisation.
Yes.
When you're serving the community, you're actually involved in a level of politics.
Yep.
It's, but obviously getting into Parliament, for example, then you're playing in a different field, you're playing in a different organisation.
Yes.
And I said, oh, well, I never saw it that way. And it was a really nice reframe for me.
Yep.
So that I don't look at it from the point of view that I was looking at it previously, which is I don't want to get involved in politics, and I don't
Why would I want to go down that road?
Yeah. Well, often what we usually see of politics is politicians down each other's throats.
Yep.
People pointing out the flaws in other people. Perhaps it's to help them gain votes. Perhaps it's because of their own shortcomings of not sharing what they could be sharing that could really help the people, what they stand for. So I want to play
popularity contest and scandals and internal fighting and kniving and
all of that, and we see them in Parliament House just having Mr. Speaker, and they're really having a screaming match. And so what I would love to see in politics, the future of politics, is people that respect each other's point of view and focus purely and wholly and solely on what they're presenting as solutions for the Australian people.
Yep.
That's it.
Yes.
And it should be cut off at the knees where they're starting to bag or put somebody else's policies down, because that's not what it's about, And I think that
they're a reflection of society. That's the interesting thing, is that how they behave and how they decide to kind of I guess work together with each other is really a reflection of us, because
100%.
One of them is chosen. Yep, that's middle class Australia. That's the good old Aussie bloke. That's the person we want in there. This is more of the the corporate sort of bloke. That's who we want in there, and it's a reflection of us as a society.
Totally. And you know what? It's good that you say that, because it makes me think about, if this is behaviour that was happening in your household, would you stop that? If it was your son talking that way to your daughter or something like that, would you say, hey, cut it out, speak to her with respect. Don't tell her, don't bully her into telling her what you want her to do. Show her what you want to do.
Yes.
And focus on what you can bring as a solution to this situation, rather than putting the other person down to try and make a point.
Yeah.
And if we apply that same rule to your workplace, it would be the same. Stop. It's not about bullying someone into agreeing with you. It's, can you see it from their point of view? And if you can't, what is the solution you're bringing to the table?
Exactly.
And I think what we've allowed as a society is these people that are acting like children, having a tantrum in Parliament, instead of people that have a healthy view on things and can represent their solutions for their community and for the people that they're representing.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah.
It's solutions or nothing.
Yes.
If you can't help, and if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Get out of the way.
Yeah.
And so the future of politics, in my view, is where people are honouring and respecting each other, even if they're oppositions.
Yeah.
And they work towards focusing on presenting their solutions in complete harmony with themselves, with their party, with their group, with their community, and with zero disrespect to the other party.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I think what we've seen recently with the US elections, for example, It's a huge circus that just happens on a world stage, and it happens every 4 years, and it completely distracts the world.
Yes.
Previous time it was Hillary Clinton against Trump, and the campaign was so nasty.
Yeah.
This recent one was probably not as nasty, but it's still messy. There's no outcome that's been determined yet.
Yeah.
And maybe Australia shouldn't be taking a leaf out of that book. No. Maybe we need to create our own leadership, our own standards. We're a different country with a different population, with a different demographics. But it
kind of seems like a trickle stream, doesn't it? What kind of happens in the US, in a lot of legislation, in a lot of, sort of trends and a lot of things like that, it kind of trickles down to Australia.
Yeah, and that's sad, because although we do have an alliance with them and everything else, and I'm okay with that part, we need to be our own individual.
Our own identity. Yeah.
Our own identity, our own voice for the people. That I think the government needs to remember that they're representing the people.
Yep.
And they don't just go and do whatever they want to do based on whatever they think is the alliance.
Yes.
They need to have the biggest alliances for the people.
Well, it seems like more of a sports team, like betting. You've got a few countries here, and we're with these countries, and those ones they're kind of against, and we've got to get together, and we've got to make sure that we appease our teammate over here, and make sure the coach is okay over there, and we've got to get a strategy ready to play against them, and that's what it seems like. But the values of Health Australia Party are different, aren't they?
Very different, and we're basically a new party that is, since 2015, so it's not like we've been around for 100 years or something.
Yeah.
And we're about the people and sharing and representing the current local knowledge and information that the people want to be presented.
Yes.
The solutions that the people want to be, the health solutions. The common misconception when people hear Health Australia parties, they think that it's to do with individual or personal health. But we're actually more about governance, economy, all different health from different aspects.
Yes,
because
the health of the country, the heartbeat of the country.
Exactly, the health of the community, the health of
the farmers.
Whatever it is, that particular sector or segment that you're representing as part of Health Australia candidate or leadership, that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
So, of course, personal health is impacted by financial health.
Yes.
Economy health is impacted by business health and industry health.
Yep.
And so all these healths are integrated. And if we could just look at a healthy economy, a healthy way of life, if we're talking about farming, organic farming, if we're talking about healthy environment, then we're talking about healthy, clean air and water and food supply. It's very important.
Yes.
The more we can keep it as simple as that, the better we can honor what we're doing rather than overcomplicating it.
Exactly. Yeah. Still pay attention and still pay respect to nature and like Mother Nature as we advance in our own civilization, but don't disregard Mother Nature, don't disregard those sorts of things,
Totally.
Because look at how sick people get when they when you spend all your time at home on devices, on electronics, detaching yourself completely from a park, from a nature trip, from natural food. If you just eat food just straight out of boxes non-stop, that has preservatives, and that's not very healthy for you, the further you get away from Mother Nature, as a human being, the more you enter sickness and disease and and not just physical, mental, and spiritual as well. Because you're not connected. You won't care about that tree if you see it as just something in the way of my house, something in the way of my, you won't care about that tree anymore. You won't care about, and so I think it's all a. It's kind of, it becomes a ticking time bomb, or it starts a trend. If you disrespect, say your family member, your woman, your friend, one day, and you don't address that, you don't look at that, it will just keep going. So if you disrespect someone online, if they've got some sort of opinion and they're sharing something, and you just say, you're an idiot, I hate you, you're terrible, all this sort of stuff.
Just because they have a different opinion.
Just because they have a different opinion, which, like, my God, like, we sat around fires, we sat, as a civilization, we sat in rooms with people that had totally opposite opinions of us.
Yeah.
But the whole point is to have discussions with those people. But, if you, I guess...
Well, that's what diversity is, right?
Yeah.
So diversity isn't about having the same opinion, agreeing all the time.
No.
It's about respecting each other's opinion.
Yes.
And where you're coming from, where I'm coming from, where everybody else is coming from, and coming up with an integrated, holistic idea that is respectful, that comes from an essence of love.
Yes.
rather than an essence of judgment and hate and
Or I need to be right, I need to be correct, I need to get the badge.
Which is very common these days. Everybody thinks they're right just because they have an opinion.
Yes.
But the key idea is, maybe you are right, but the how do you bring that across? How do you represent that? Is it about being liked or disliked, or is it more about being right and representing the truth?
Yes.
These days we live in a society that is all about information. It's an information age.
Yes.
And I've been calling it for a long time over information.
Yeah.
Now we can actually start to call it misinformation.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of misinformation floating around, and it's very hard for people to discern the difference between what's right and what's wrong, who's paid to have that out there, who's presenting this information, and the information may be by two great doctors when it goes completely opposed to each other. What people don't realize is that's what science is.
Yeah.
Science is not meant to completely prove something to a complete point.
How
it's
would
just
we have
meant
had
to see
any experimental test if we,
exactly.
We didn't ask the questions.
And so the key, when you tie it back to spirituality, your true discernment comes from being within spirit, inspired in spirit. And spirit doesn't have to mean religion. It doesn't have to mean anything like that. It could actually be somebody that's not religious at all, but they have a practice that allows them to connect and harmonize within themselves.
Could be an internal compass.
It could be.
Yeah, it could be your gut feeling, your soul.
One with nature.
Yeah.
Someone that harmonizes and understands what you were saying about the harmony of plants and trees and respecting their coexistence with ours, rather than saying it's in the way of my house and chop it down. That tree may have been around longer than you have been, your parents have been, your grandparents have been, and you just come and chop it because of something. Can you build around it?
Yes.
Can you
and look, a lot
respect
of people,
it?
And the respecting, a lot of people might not respect the conversation or the spiritual, the soul, get deeper. That's woo-woo, that's a big term, woo-woo.
Sure.
But just go out into, a park, sit there for a few seconds and just monitor, just have some self-awareness, just be aware, how do you feel? Go to the beach, how do you feel? Go for a swim, take a bit of time into nature and then just be self-aware and go, wow, am I calm? Am I, when I was on the computer, when I was on the phone, when I was, freaking out about everything going on in the world, now I'm just in nature and let me observe myself. Let me observe, let me put my hand over my heart and just feel my heartbeat for a few seconds and observe how I'm feeling.
Society has
self-observation.
Absolutely, self-reflection, self-observation is really important. Society has evolved, if you want, or have they fallen back?
Evolved,
or going the other way. Because when you look at ancient civilizations, they all had something in common, which is harmonizing with tribe, harmonizing with spirit. Even our own indigenous people of the indigenous land of Australia, they have what they call the song of the land. And so it's the flow of the land, the layout, the landscape of the land. You change the landscape, you change the song lines.
Yes.
And so the only reason spirituality has taken this form of woo-woo is only because we've stopped integrating it into our day-to-day life. It's become something that's taboo.
And we can't connect with it then.
We can't connect with it. And you could do that about anything. You could do that about driving a car if you wanted to. Make it so foreign and so alien to drive a car that it becomes woo-woo to drive a car.
Yeah.
There's parts of society that have done
trendy.
that. Not trendy anymore. Get an Uber instead of driving your own
car. Or hovercraft.
Or a spaceship, So anything can be termed woo-woo and taboo. And that's happened a lot over time with sexuality, for example. Sexuality is one of the most sacred things on earth. It's how humans come into life.
Yes.
And instead of trying to understand it, harmonize with it, and maybe build some great values and morals around it, people have termed it woo-woo.
Yeah.
And then what gives birth there is very dark industries that are multi-billion-dollar industries that are all over our internet.
Yeah.
And completely ungoverned.
Yeah.
And so turning something into a woo or a taboo doesn't solve it.
Well, you're dismissing it, and I think this is, I guess, what we're kind of discussing is that it's that disrespect and that dismissive. If you don't understand a bit of information, or you don't understand an ideology, or you don't understand it, and you just dismiss it. So nihilism. Someone speaks about nihilism. Oh, I don't really know what that is. I'm just going to dismiss it as one of just another ism, another term. But it's an important thing to kind of understand, and why people come from a nihilistic or nihilism sort of view. And I think a great quote that I heard the other day was, find out what you can learn from those you hate the most.
Interesting.
And I just thought that was a really interesting way of thinking about it, because
Yeah.
we're so polarized in today's day.
Definitely.
2020, we're so on opposite ends, and we're so attached to our beliefs,
Yeah.
and the problem is a lot of people believe they are their beliefs. You're not your beliefs. Your beliefs can change over time. Something can, I'm sure in your life, something has impacted you, and your belief system is totally altered, or you believe in something so much, and you might not want to admit it. I think a lot of times for males, maybe, the partner says something.
thing.
Yeah, so your partner says something really like wise, or maybe teaches you something, and go, I won't tell her that really helped me out, and I'm taking more care of that anymore, because of that pride. But I think you've got to ask yourself, are we coming from that place like of love, or are we coming from that place of I need to be right, I need to be attached to this category, I need approval of people that I don't even know, and I need to be attached to my beliefs because they are who I am. You're not that. You're so much greater than your beliefs.
And usually that comes from fear of being wrong, fear of rejection,
Yeah.
fear of not being popular, whatever it may be.
Yes.
Fear of having a different opinion.
Yeah.
So I must absolutely be and comply with what society's setting out for me. And a lot of it is also unconscious.
Yeah.
So if we go back to what you were saying about the different teams, if you like, where it appears almost like football teams.
Yeah.
What if there's an illusion that they're different, but some of them actually play the same through their preferencing?
Yeah.
They
like fixing in sports.
They agree to whatever they behind those doors.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we've got to be careful of that, because if we condone that as a society, then suddenly we're making something like that right when they're supposed to be addressing different views from different angles to bring a collective understanding or collective solution,
which is what business does. It's a problem solving thing, and that's where business, and recently we've seen you can hate and dislike and everything, but you might see politicians that come through the gates, and they come from a place of business or a background in business, and they address a lot of problems in a different sort of way, and they get a few more things done in certain areas. They might not be liked, they might be hate, that they might not be statesmen, but they get certain things done. And I think that's that's the difference of these sort of parties. I mean, one of my views is that maybe we can get to a certain stage in humanity where overbearing political systems become redundant, because so many entrepreneurs get together and find solutions for society, and society can become even more self-reliant. You used to go to government for, well, we can't build roads, we can't get together, society can't get together and do these sorts of things. We need to employ a government, and we need to give the government taxes for these things, which I strongly believe is important. But what happens when that government no longer serves you, and what happens when they are telling you what you can and can't do down to every little point of your life, in terms of even coming into your own house and dictating
how you live,
and certain decisions that you have in your own life. I mean,
where's the freedom in that? Where is the human rights in that? Where is the understanding that my government is there to serve me? And they're operating from a place that is of my best interest, not their best interest. And so I think that's the key thing. If we have a governance that we trust, because their best interest is serving our best interest, then that makes sense. But if we have a governance in place that is governed by people that have a different best interest to the collective, they have an interest that serves corporations, whether it's big pharma or whether it's big corporate, whatever it is, that's where the problems become way more apparent. Because
they're not serving you. And you could be an inconvenience in the way of them serving something else.
Exactly. Are they focused on a wellness system, or are they focused on a sickness system? Because the sickness system has more subscribers and it generates more money. The wellness system means potentially certain businesses go bankrupt. Because they have no practice anymore in supplying drugs and all sorts of other things. So I think the key going forward and presenting solutions is to ensure that we're representing healthy people in a healthy way with healthy ideas that come from a healthy intention of serving those people, not serving anybody else. You can't have two masters. You really have to have the one, and the one master in governance should be the people that we serve. That's it. That's the one governance. People say, oh, hang on, but you've also got to serve your party and you've got to serve the law. Well, they should all be already in harmony with serving the people.
Well, that's the whole point of government, and it's a taboo topic, and talking about politics, and oh my gosh, this is a political
Mainly because people
conversation.
don't understand it.
Yeah, it's sensitive. I don't want to get talk to people. I don't want to get into that. But if you think about it, governance, it's about getting together so we can organize life and we can simplify it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's just become, how complex has it become to do the most simple things? How complex is it to manage and take care of your own health these days?
Totally.
There's 100 million different things you can do. But wow, I can go walk, which is something I do every day, a little bit longer, and that can improve my health.
Well,
I can do something simple.
It's become so crazy that the people that need the system and rely on the system, like the sick people, the elderly people, they've been shut out of the system that they need and that they need to trust and rely on.
Yeah.
In case other people need it, yet the hospital's all empty.
Yes.
So I've been speaking to people that work in hospitals
where
they said we've cleared all these floors to make room for people that come in with a certain disease.
Yes.
But the floor is empty. And yet the people that have preconditions that need the treatment, need the surgery, can't go there and can't have their surgery, can't have that operation that could potentially save their life.
Yep.
So that's how crazy things are becoming. And so let's just touch a little bit, because the taboo thing has come up twice in our conversation at least. You know what becomes taboo? Things that we don't understand.
Yes.
So once upon a time, something as innocent as the fork, and I'm talking about cutlery here, spoon and fork was demonized because it was called something that demonized it because people didn't understand it because they wanted to eat with their hands.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so it became something of Satan, something of
banish it to the shadow realm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Until it became understood and readily accepted.
Yep.
And so everything in life that we turn into a taboo means we just haven't shined enough light on it to understand it better.
Yeah.
And figure out.
Fear comes from not knowing.
Exactly. Yeah. It's false evidence appearing real.
Yep.
And all we need to do is just figure out, by shining some light on whatever the topic is that we're calling taboo in our life, in our own self-governance.
Yes.
What is it there for? What's it meant to serve? What's the greater purpose? What's the essence behind it? And if we try and figure that out and sense that within ourselves, which is what you're talking about with the self-reflection, then we might figure that, hang on, it's not taboo at all.
Yeah.
It's not woo-woo at all. What are you talking about? We're talking about spirituality in the sense of connecting with nature and environment. Well, we'd be dead if we didn't do that.
Yeah.
If we didn't harmonize with our nature and our environment and honor it and respect it.
Yeah.
No wonder why we get sick.
Yeah.
Are we chopping down the trees that are supposed to be giving us oxygen?
Yeah.
Are we chopping down the things that we need in our life? Oh, why are we doing that?
Yeah.
And so suddenly shining a light on something can help us understand it better, ask the right questions,
exactly,
delve deeper rather than the surface level.
Yeah.
And the fork idea is just a very classic example from ancient times.
I love it. And that's the thing, it's the observation. I think self-observation, self-awareness. I lived with my grandparents, and I grew up with my grandfather for many years, and he was very good at just observing. He wouldn't say a lot of words. There'd be a party, he would just observe. And his words would stick because they were wise, and they came from a simple understanding that I, in my teenage years or my early adult years, mindset could actually understand. Might have taken a few times for the message to be delivered, like with the political party, it's going to take a few times for that message, a few efforts for that message to be delivered.
Yeah.
But when it's delivered, it sticks with you. It's kind of attached to your soul, attached to your heart, and it's basic principles of nature and like the laws of the universe. Like looking after your family, you look after your family. If you don't feed your child, what happens? Great. If you don't feed the environment, what's going to happen to the environment?
Yes.
You can just like a parallel, or you can just like a mirror, apply that basic family structure, Mother Nature, to everything. Would you like
us to share some value with the audience?
Please do. Yeah, go into it. The Health Australia Party values.
Well, I was just thinking, even picking this particular point about being an observer.
Yes.
And rather than judging something and dismissing it, that we take our time to reflect on it from a healthy space.
Yes.
I met a gentleman recently. He's old enough to be my grandfather.
Yes.
Beautiful soul.
Yep.
And I was affected at the time when I met him. I was a little bit emotional about something that was deeply affecting me.
Yes.
I'd gone through a situation within business and I felt betrayed and I was really traumatized.
Yeah.
And it was a drama in my life at the time.
Yes.
And he looked at me lovingly and just smiled with his kind eyes and said, if you were a theta how would you feel about it? And I said, what are you talking about? What do you mean, what theatre? With respect, what are you on about?
Yeah.
And he's like, a theatre has all these plays that come on stage, and they have people that play a comedy, people that play a drama. Does the theatre as a building get affected by that? And I said, no. He said,
Wow.
okay.
Yeah.
So when the theatre gets affected by it, does it become the theatre or does it become something else? Perhaps it becomes part of the play, like one of the characters, becomes the audience. And he goes, and that's how you've got to view your life.
Yes.
And I said, well, hang on, let me put it in more modern terms, because you're putting in theatre. I haven't really gone to too many theatres
lately. Yeah.
And I said, so in my terms and most viewers' terms, if I was to look at life from an observatory point of view as a TV, the TV isn't affected by what channel you're playing.
Yes.
Whether you're playing a channel that has a drama or a horror story or a comedy story or a love story, the TV is the TV.
Yep.
It doesn't change its identity, its feelings, it's whatever.
No.
And people are going to say, well, the TV doesn't have an identity and feelings. But we just, for this example, imagine the TV is impartial of what's being played on the screen.
Yes. It's a vessel.
It's a vessel. And so
a message.
If we look at our lives like that and what's going on around us, and we can say, I could have the opportunity here to just view this as an observer, as the screen or as the projector or as the theatre, and not be impacted. The moment I'm impacted, I'm part of the play.
Yes.
I'm taking a role here now. I've become an actor, or I've become something.
Emotionally attached to the
I'm
actors,
emotionally
attached to the circumstance, the environment, the happenings.
Exactly. So to pull back a little bit, be the observer, as your grandfather put it, as this man that could be my grandfather.
Yes.
In different forms.
Yes.
Yeah. I love him. And this conversation that we had was so deep and profound, and it really helped me a lot. To a whole new level, and it developed these new levels of respect between us, just because he was willing enough to go there with me, to talk to me about something like that.
Exactly. And that would have been against your certain belief systems or emotional attachments that you brought in on that time. So he was going against the grain, telling you something that you weren't going to openly agree with,
Great
trying
insight.
to appease with you.
Great insight.
He was actually trying to say something to the contrary of you in order to help you.
Yes. If I was impartial to the situation, I would have been able to see what he's saying immediately.
Yeah.
But because I was so traumatized and I'd definitely bought into my drama, and I was playing a role in that drama and feeding it.
As we all do,
as we do. And I pulled back in that moment just to entertain what he's sharing with me, to see if I could try it on for size. And just that pulling back for the moment completely dropped dissolved, like you would when you throw some salt in water, it dissolves. It dissolved the whole thing for me. It collapsed it. And so then I had a choice from that moment onwards. Do I want to re-enter the play as part of the drama, as one of the drama pawns, actors, characters, or do I want to play a different game, go back to being the observer and see how I can do this differently, look at this differently, respond differently. And that changed everything. And so that's what I think, if we could share value with the audience in this time in life, whatever it is that you're going through, whether it's a health concern, a family stress concern, a business stress concern, an economy stress concern, or even if it's a happy concern, it doesn't have to be something that's a bad concern. Just try this on for size. Step back, look at it from the eye of an observer, not someone that's impacted by it, even though you may be impacted by it.
And attached to it.
Detach for a moment, just for a moment. And give it that space to go, how can I watch this unravel from here? How can I play a different role in this if I'm going to play a role? How can I bring different light to this if I'm going to bring a light to it? Or I could just choose to stay completely detached still. Kyle. Look, it's interesting because I've never really fathomed the notion of getting involved in any form of politics. The most I ever got involved with politics is showing up for the elections and making a vote. But having said that, 2020 is one of those years that make you really rethink lots of different things. And one of the things that I assessed in my life is, what role do I want to play as a leader, both in my family and my community? And what would stop me from getting out and playing a bigger role? There's often this feeling of we need to see a change. And now more than ever, there must be a change. And I really think to genuinely want the change, you've got to be the change.
Yep.
And so
Agree
I
with that.
found alignment with Health Australia Party.
Yep.
One of the most important things that I've learned in my life is values. So if your values and my values have some synergy and some alignment, we're more likely to work well together, to honor the work that we're doing, to honor the people that we're serving, and to do things that are much more powerful.
Yes.
If our values don't align, we're more likely to run in conflict, or at least have a lot of things that we're going to struggle with.
Yep.
And so the Health Australia Party has a very, very easy policy or ability to show others that they're there for good reasons, to
Yep.
show solutions. Not so much that they want to go against anything.
Yep.
They don't stand against anything per se, but they stand for everything in terms
Yes.
of providing people a solution. What do I mean by that? So I mean they don't stand against policies that are working currently.
They're not anti. They're not anti. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
They're not anti anything in that sense.
Yep.
Now I don't want this to be to sound like, well, so that means they're pro everything.
No.
But at the same
They're
time,
obviously against, I guess the obvious sort of things that are harmful to humans.
Yeah.
And the dangers in that area.
Yes.
But they're not necessarily anti this and anti that, because as soon as you become anti,
are you part of the problem?
Yeah.
Like for example, when we've all heard this, so I'll use it. It's a terrible example, but I'll use it. When we've heard the war on terror.
Yes.
Isn't war terror?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a double negative.
Yes.
And so that's what I mean when I say,
drugs,
the war on drugs,
problems.
more drug issues, rather, and anything that you put a stigma towards, it creates more of that issue.
Yes.
Rather than if you're embracing and looking for solutions,
yeah.
then rather than being anti-Semitism, you're actually going, well, look, I'm actually pro-choice.
Yeah.
Rather than anti this.
Exactly. Yes.
So anything obviously that aligns with humanity.
Yes.
The human rights, making sure that we've got organic things happening in our lives, in our world, in our governance, they're all for.
Yes.
And they're all pro, and they want to express and expand on that. Mm-hmm. Any of the other things, we're just wasting our time if we even think about them for now.
Yes.
So that's what appealed to me, or at least that's my take on it, and everybody's take and perceptions are different.
Yep.
So for example, if we had one of the co-founders here, he might say, no, hang on, we are anti-something, but his perception, and this is the power of communication, is just a little different to mine.
Yes, exactly, yeah. And I think one of the great things that I've learned so far from the party is that it opens up the opportunity for that communication, that discussion. And like you said about the policies, which I found something really interesting, is that they are open for editing and for fixing up. You'll look at the policies and you'll go back and you'll say, maybe we could change this, maybe we could alter this, let's have a look at a few things.
Absolutely.
And then you can work on it. So then you can make it the perfect, pinnacle of good policies and good values of the Health Australia Party. It's not set in stone. We're always going to stick here, and this is our only, and our only way that we can work with this.
Well, you bring up a really good point, and it's that rigidity that sometimes defines a party in a harsh way or in not such a great light, because they're so rigid and not willing to flex and move with the time.
Yes.
And so our party is reasonably new. They've been around since 2015.
Yep.
And their policies are great in my view. But is there room to improve on greatness? Of course there is.
Yeah.
And so if there's someone like yourself that's passionate about a particular topic, and you raise that, we go, okay, great. Why don't we sit together and work out how would you like us to modify our policy? And we'll run that by the leadership team. And as long as it meets and fits within our alignment, we'll change the policy.
Yep.
To make it better, to improve it for the reason of serving more people.
Yeah. So for you, this came at the right timing, or was it a reaction thing? Because I always remember this saying, a quote, or I guess someone that said to me when I was a kid. There was a counsellor at school, and I saw him, and he was helping me through some things, and he walked me down the stairs and out into the open, and everyone could see that I was, with this counsellor, and so obviously as a teenage kid in a, all-boys school, I started to get nervous and everything, and he was quiet the whole way down as we walked down the stairs, and he said to me, he goes, Kyle, it's how you react in life that counts, it's how you react, and he just left it at that, and that was just enough for me to really take into my life and use so many different aspects of my life, especially in modern times, especially with everything that's going on. and it's how you react. Because you can react and go insular, you can react and go that way. I know that I've got pre-existing conditions, and a lot of people came to me and went, oh, like, shouldn't you be worried about this? Shouldn't you? And I went, no, I'm going to go and boost up my health. I'm going to get back into running every day. I'm going to get some vitamin C, get vitamin C, vitamin K2. I'm going to boost up my health, and actually, this is a reason for me to live healthier and better. So, I guess the long-winded question is was this a reaction? The reason that you went to Health Australia Party, reaction to this sort of year, or was it timing?
Well, again, so perceptions and differences of choice of words. The way I see life is nothing has meaning until you assign it with meaning.
Yep.
So perhaps that's what the counselor was referring to, is how you react is how you assign meaning.
Yes.
And so what I've seen, this may not be the best timing for me personally. I've got a business. I've left the corporate world to grow that business. I've got a growing family with my wife about to give birth to our third child.
Yeah.
Timing wise, I could probably say it's the worst timing, but there is something that I live by in terms of assigning meaning, and it's this. I worked for a Fortune 500 company, one of the greatest companies and biggest brands in the world.
Yes.
I was so proud and fortunate to have had that experience.
Yep.
And moved through the ranks with them and did so many different things in the supply chain. And one of the things that I learned when I look back at the essence of what started this company, that is a top Fortune 500 company, that's been around for over 100 years, that's in almost every country around the globe, was why did it start? I look for that. I look for the essence of why something started. What's the intention behind it?
Yes.
And I found that the message from the foundation was necessity.
Yep.
The tractors that they were building, the equipment, the technology, the innovation was all birthed from necessity.
Yes.
So
solving a problem.
And so that's my involvement with Health Australia Party, is I feel that they've been birthed out of necessity in this day and age to try and deliver a message that is important. So the first essence of why their necessity was coming about was to represent natural health, natural medicine, natural practitioners, and be their voice and to help them, basically have a presence from a governance point of view.
Yeah.
And as survive. And as we look at 2020 is presenting us all with different challenges.
Yep.
It's the only year and the first year in my life that I've ever looked up the word apocalypse.
Yes.
And the word apocalypse in Greek origins actually has a meaning that means revealing and unveiling.
Yes.
So it's not the end of the world or anything like that some people might term it as.
Yep.
Hence perceptions and meanings.
Yes. Movies made from it and all that sort of
exactly.
Yes.
They make apocalypse look like it's doomsday, but it's not. So it's revealing and unveiling, and it may be revealing and unveiling some of the contrast, some of the things that we didn't want to see, like acknowledging the flaws in some of our medical systems, the vulnerabilities in some of our governance, the knee-jerk reaction in some of our ways of doing things, jumping on things. Are we doing it from a proactive place or reactive place? And so the necessity that I saw is now is the time, and this is the place to step up and to take the bull by the horns, as they say, take some leadership and accountability. And I think not only the Australian government needs leadership and accountability, but almost every government around the world needs to stand up and have more accountability in their leadership.
Yes.
Whether they get it right or they get it wrong, they need to just stand up, hand on heart, and say, look, we made the best decision with what we have, and let's improve from here. Let's work together. More consultation needs to happen to get people's views on things, rather than just going off this idea that people are stupid and they need to be told what to do.
Yes.
That herd mentality idea, I don't really abide by that. My thoughts are democracy is meant to be about freedom.
Yep.
Freedom of choice, freedom of speech.
Yes.
And a lot of those things seem to be falling by the wayside. So things on social media and on platforms that you used to think you had freedoms of are being suppressed.
Yeah.
And so that to me is alarm bells. That to me is the sign of burning the books that we've seen in the history.
Yep.
If we're suppressing doctors, people that have a PhD, if we're suppressing people that are sharing information that needs to be out in the forefront of what we're going through right now, then who are we listening to?
Yeah, exactly.
And why are we suppressing them? Is it because it's going against the current narrative that the mainstream media is sharing? And that becomes the alarm bells that I want to personally stand for.
Yes.
I've done some time in media, even if it was community TV. And I've had a chance to sort of get passionate
Yes.
about the importance of having a message
And a platform.
and a platform
Yeah.
for people.
Yeah.
Whether it's the homeless people, or whether it's the scholars, or whether it's the students, or whether it's people in governance like MPs or local council or whatever it may be, they need to have a voice. They need to be able to reach their people to share certain things.
Yep.
If we were to say, no, I don't agree with MP so-and-so, so we're going to silence them.
Yeah.
Personally, that goes against not only freedom of speech, but it also goes against human rights.
Yes, exactly.
And
the basic starting grounds that we were birthed from.
Right, yeah. And in some people, if they look at it, it is unconstitutional. So it goes against our laws.
Yes.
To do that, and I always operate from the place of what our justice system operates from is, absolutely innocent until proven guilty.
Yep.
But if we're tarnishing people with stupid until they prove themselves to be smart and abide by the laws,
yes.
or they're guilty until proven innocent, then we're really going against the grain of the policies and the governance
yep.
that should be working with our society, not against it.
All right, cool, Bass. I just thought I would just ask you a few questions about the principles of the HAP party. I think it's always important to know what you're getting into when you tick the box, or what you're getting into when you kind of support cause.
Yeah.
So what are the foundations of the HAP party, if you can summarize it?
Yeah, sure. So the Health Australia Party has 5 core pillars.
Yes.
And under those 5 pillars, they've got policies that relate to each of the pillars.
Yes.
So the first one is people. Healthy people is really important.
Yep.
We won't, in business, you can't get far without healthy people.
Yes, exactly.
And
they need to move. Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then you need, obviously, healthy environment.
Yes.
Healthy people, healthy environment, healthy economy.
Yes.
Healthy society, healthy democracy.
Yes.
And so instead of, I guess, on the forefront of looking at a party that says Health Australia Party, you think, are they just about personal health? Well, no, we're about all those things.
Yep.
And all those things they need to coexist and harmonize together.
Yes.
Because without the healthy environment, you don't have healthy people.
Yep.
Without the healthy economy, you don't have healthy people.
Yes.
Without the healthy democracy, you don't have those things sort of held together.
Exactly.
And so, of course, economy plays a role in that. I mean, all of those things, society, democracy, all those things hold the net
yes.
for the healthy people.
Yeah, and I think, one of the main things take away from that is that everything impacts everything else.
Yeah.
And kind of everything matters. Some things matter more than other things.
Yes.
Certainly, but everything matters because we're all going to affect each other in some way. If your economy's down, or if you lost your job, different sort of things, you're going to be down in relationships, and that's going to affect the health, and that's going to affect another community. So it's like a puddle just blossoms. So yeah, I think you've got that core of health. It's so powerful.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great fundamental way to be, and basis. Without a strong foundation, then you can create the most glorious Taj Mahal.
Yes.
But if the foundation is shaky, the walls won't stand, or at least they won't stand straight.
Exactly.
The roof will look nice, but it'll look like it's out of out of shape.
Yep.
And so we need to have the healthy foundations. And that's what Health Australia is about.
Yes.
The healthy foundations with those healthy pillars that uphold a healthy lifestyle for people. And I think we've, as a society, moved away from some of those things over time. We've kind of lost the way a little bit, because if you look back at civilizations before us, they seem to have had some things, some grounding that just made them work better. Were they more intelligent? Were they more healthy? Were they more fundamentally connected?
Yes.
Maybe. Or was it just that they had better fundamentals that we've lacked or we've missed out on today?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the 2020 situation, with lots of things that have been happening, have really brought that to light a lot more.
Yep.
So this is where leadership needs to stand up, and leadership needs to be accountable, have integrity, have the ability to say, when we've done something right, this is what we've done and this is how we got here.
Yes.
And when we've done something that didn't go the way that we planned, we need to still be honest and transparent about it and say, look, this is what's happened. We take full responsibility, and let's make an effort to make this work better.
Yeah.
It seems like people in politics shy away from that, though, because they're afraid that they won't get re-elected.
Exactly, and that's the problem. The incentive is the driving force of their purpose in everything they do. And that's the problem. You think about it. If someone admits, if I've admitted something I did wrong to someone who loves me or who cares about me or who even just likes me a bit, they go, "Oh, don't worry, mate. I've done the same before, or how can we do it better?"
Exactly. So there's an understanding and acknowledgement.
Exactly, and you think about it. We probably like our politicians a lot more if they did come out and went, "This is something I did. These were all the measures I had in my place. This was all all the people involved, and I tried to make the best decision. And I jumped too quick. I came from a place of ego. I didn't think about this or that. And if you have that transparency, our relationship with politicians would be so much greater.
Well, at least it would be real.
Yeah.
It would be a real relationship.
Yes. Yeah.
Because there is that, I haven't always got this right. I haven't always said the thing that I needed to say. And if they could do that, then that, at least shows us they're human.
Yes.
And that they've got the best interests of other humans.
Yeah.
Sadly, what we're seeing instead is there's sometimes such a strong animosity. And it's not healthy. It's not healthy for them. It's not healthy for their parties.
Yeah.
It's not healthy for democracy. It's not healthy for our society.
Exactly.
And it needs to change.
Yeah, if you think about the worst societies that have hated their ruler, you know where that goes. So it's just it's important to have some transparency and some likability, and a bit more likability than, oh yeah, mate, I could probably have a beer with him, or yeah, I probably watch the footy. I bet he watches footy too. A bit more likability than something that maybe a good circumstance came into place and then they took charge. The circumstance happened, and look, I was the leader here, so look at me and how great I am. You want a little bit more from them, a little bit more that you can connect to and care about and be interested. And I think that transparency is so important going through, because I do believe that the truth always finds a way.
Absolutely.
I believe it's just such an undeniable thing, and whether there's people jumping on it, whether they're trying to brush it up with a bit of Photoshop, whatever they're trying to fix up, the truth will always find its own way.
Absolutely.
So, and I think that's where we're in a world of information and everything's so visual that I think it's just going to accelerate that.
I totally agree.
And these guys, these old guys, not necessarily old, but these guys that have been in that system for so long, and they're so used to, we'll just cover that, we'll just pay that off, we'll just sort that out, we'll just fix this, we'll get rid of this problem easy. Their easy problem-solving solutions are not going to be around anymore.
I call them political hacks, because they've learned by being institutionalized in that system for so long.
Yep.
And institutionalized is another word for insanity, right?
Yes.
And they use the system for their benefit. Yep. Nobody else's agenda, not humanity's, not society's, not our people, not their people, but it's just their drive and their agenda. And sadly, that becomes an issue. That becomes a serious issue. That eventually, when the truth comes out, it's either too late because they've moved on, they've passed, or whatever, somebody else has come into power, and people they develop an apathy. It's like, what can we do about it? He's no longer in power anyway.
Yeah, but but you brought up a great point. Like, I think everyone should follow the money. I think following the money, there's an old saying, like, follow the money, and you'll find the truth with all these sort of things that are coming out. Documentaries on Netflix and different sort of things that we look at wrong and immoral, organizations that we thought were moral coming out. And I think you look at it, how can a leader or a president go into power? What's the rate? 400,000 a year. I think in the US it is 400,000 a year or 200,000 a year, and then come out a multi millionaire. Buying houses all over the place and just enjoying the lavish life, which I'm not against anyone enjoying the lavish life, but you got to think, where did that money come from?
Are they using their influence to help their country, or are they using their influence to help themselves?
Yes.
And it's a good question that you're raising here, because everybody should be asking this question. When we're in a position of leadership and a position of power, and power is one of those things that is easily abused.
Yep.
And so people could tend to go, well, let's blur the lines a little bit over here. Let's accept this handout over there.
Yes.
And a little bit of this and a little bit of that adds up to corruption.
Yeah.
It definitely adds up to not seeing the best interest of your country, but seeing the best interest of the corporations or the people that are funding your campaign, whatever it may be. And I think that brings the point in Australia. We need a transparency in the donation system that goes towards political parties.
Yeah.
It needs to be honest and transparent. If we
Yes.
see a big corporation supporting or sponsoring or paying for a government or a particular party, there needs to be some honesty there.
Yep.
And with Health Australia Party, for example, we won't accept donations from corporates. We'll accept donations from individuals.
Yes.
And if there is a large corporate donation that is being proposed, we ask them why.
Yeah.
What's the intention behind this? What would you hope to achieve by making this donation?
Yes.
And if there is any blurry lines,
Yep.
we cut that right there before we even receive that check.
Yeah.
And that, I think, allows that integrity.
Yes.
That promotes the right behavior from the beginning, not the corruption, not the, we've accepted $1 million from so-and-so, now we've got to try and pass this in Parliament because it fits with their agenda.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, I mean, we're not really outing anything here that is brand new. This has been happening probably since the days of Caesar.
Yes.
Yeah. So then it brings us to another question. Is this system the right system for humanity in the year 2020?
Yeah.
We've inherited a system that goes back way before me, you, and our forefathers.
Yep.
It goes back maybe to the ancient Greeks. It goes back to the Roman Empire, and so on.
Yep.
And democracy comes from a particular, Greek individual. And we both have, the ties with the Greek Cypriot backgrounds.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So whilst we look at that,
grandfather.
exactly, we look back at that system, and we can honor the structure and the makeup and the ideas that went into it to provide a fair system.
Yep.
But if that system isn't fair and it isn't serving people the way it needs to be, then there's nothing that should be stopping us from re-exploring or looking at a better system.
Exactly.
A better way, a better technology, a better thing that may be better for our democracy, our society. Maybe it's not even the system of democracy. Maybe it's a different system altogether.
Yeah.
And rather than saying, let's just keep repairing the same old fridge that keeps breaking every day, why don't we just get a new fridge?
Yeah, exactly. No, you bring up a few good points. Like I've heard friends who have spoken about, one person the other night said something about communism would be great. It's just people that make it flawed. And, I went, but communism, you're giving all the power over to the state,
right.
Where democracy, you're giving the power over to the people.
Right.
And that's a blurry line as well, because in democracies, are you really giving the power over to the people?
Or is it an illusion?
Yeah, is it an illusion? And a lot of those sorts of things. So I think, yes, we've got to understand that humans are flawed. And, and I don't think generally a system where, everybody gets the exact same thing and we treat everybody, because that's going out saying everybody's going to do the same work.
Yeah.
If I go, I'll pay you 50,000, I'll pay this person 50,000, but that person might, sleep on the job. The other person might be a high achiever.
Yeah.
You've got to pay attention to the hierarchy structure and pay and invest in that person, because that person could come out with a cure down the track, or he could come out with something innovative like what we're talking about.
Sure. Well, potentially, even if we look away from both those systems, because it doesn't have to be one of those systems or the other.
Yeah.
If we look at an entirely, I'm sure there's better systems than either of those two,
Yeah.
And the idea of exploring that would be fantastic. I think I'd welcome it.
Yes.
The idea of looking at restructuring.
Well, in Britain, they had a, instead of economy, it was a kind of like a favour, like in some of the communities back in the day.
Bartering system.
Bartering sort of system, and that's how some communities,
Sure.
kind of, developed. And then also I've heard of communities in India where it's similar bartering system, and there's no finances, there's no money, there's no paper involved.
Sure.
And then I've also heard, it would be a lot better if money had a gold little imprint on it.
Sure.
So I think there's definitely, yes, humans are flawed. Yes, the system's flawed.
Yeah.
But yes, there's good things out of it as well. And that's where I try to have a balance, where I think I'd love for entrepreneurs to get their hand in. I'd love for philanthropic people to get involved and keep, innovating and finding solutions, and make sure that this sort of government, or say a cluggy, not necessarily government or politics, but a cluggy system doesn't hold society back.
Yes.
And doesn't confine society. I think the biggest issue is that it doesn't try and control and dictate to society, which we've seen in many countries, in many societies, many groups around the world. And I think that's, if you've got a policy, a list of policies in the Health Australia Party that's all about giving, I think it's the giving nature rather than the taking nature.
Well, putting people first is one of those great things. Honouring the idea of, if we're in the democracy system, honoring the democracy system,
Yep.
human rights,
Yes.
working from the pillar and the idea of we're dealing with healthy people, not with sick people.
Yes.
And that's really important, especially in the space of health and mental health. You want to have that approach under the people category of we're working with people that are healthy and we're assisting them either maintain health or improve their health.
Yes.
Or if they've had some sort of condition or precondition and they feel, well, how do we educate them so that they continue to do the right thing to drive better health?
Yes.
You know.
Self-preservation. It all comes back to that self-preservation.
Totally. And when you work from that premise, it's like working from the premise with democracy that you've got the right to freedom.
Yep.
You've got the right to be proven innocent till you're proven guilty.
Yes.
Rather than trying to make people feel that they need to be trapped and they need to be treated like they're stupid or they need to have their human rights stripped off them. Why would anybody do that?
Yeah.
You know? I think that not only goes against democracy, it goes against the law of nature.
Yes.
And
Human nature, yes.
natural laws and even the laws that used to govern us before any democracy is the law of free will.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we strip away people's free will, free rights to do what they need to do, not only with their lives, but with their body.
Yes.
We're taking away body autonomy that drives to, I think that is the definition of slavery.
Yes.
You know, we take that away from people. You don't know what to do with your body, Kyle. Let me tell you what to do.
Yeah.
You're now property of the state.
Yeah.
And so I think
sounds like a good sales spin.
Yeah, exactly. And so we need to really be aware of these things and restore these things rather than
philosophies and values and basic principles of humanity. You know, we are the one being that actually, or the one of the things in our world that can actually make decisions and have been given the dignity to make decisions, free will decisions.
Yes.
You know, this tree behind me, this tree is going to do its thing. It's going to spread its roots. It's going to try and strive for the top of the top of the ceiling of the sky, where humans can go, oh, you know what, today instead of working, I'm going to sit on my bum, I'm going to eat some Cheetos, I'm going to watch some Netflix, I'm going to take it easy, and they can do that for as long as they like. Or they can get up one day, go for a run, they can get up another day, they can go to a library. They've got the choices of whether they want to strive for greatness or strive for a better way of life or strive for more health or not. And that's the dignity. And that's what we're saying, the free democracies, they've got the choice. But at least let them have the choice.
Let them have it. And it comes back to what you said about great sales speech. It's up to each person to either buy into that sales speech and sales spill and be tricked by it, or to not buy into it and go, you know what, I want to restore the natural rules, the natural laws of being a human being.
Yes,
being a people's person. And since I was in corporate,
I can see that, man.
I've noticed that people are the number one asset in any business.
Yep.
And so, moving around in corporate and getting into training and talking to people, realizing that I really love spending time with people. I really love talking to people, helping people, educating people, whatever it may be, sharing awareness, sharing knowledge, sharing commonality, because we have more in common than what we have that separates us.
Exactly. Yeah. We all got the same heart.
Definitely. And coincidentally, I moved out of corporate into natural health, if you like, as a practitioner. And again, my focus my primary focus.
I was just going to say, I'm going to start again just because of the...
Can't go on past.
Well, no, then I kind of thought of how it was running. But yeah, I'll start that one again.
Sure.
That's fine. All right, so there's 5 main pillars to the Health Australia Party.
Yes.
What are those pillars again?
Okay, so it's about people, economy, environment, democracy, and society.
Beautiful. You've got the whole ecosystem covering everything. Mm-hmm. What would be your favourite few out of the top 5?
Well, I'd like to probably start with the main one, which is people. I've always noticed I'm a people's person, and so are you, Kyle.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what makes us do what we do. Yep. I did that in corporate. I was all about the people, and even moving through the different roles and different departments. It always was about gravitating towards helping people. Yep. How can I make their job easier? Got into training at some point, traveling around the world and meeting different people from different... And you notice and learn so much about people when you're spending time with different people.
Yes.
You notice that the things that unite us rather than the things that separate us is our values. Having common values drives us together.
Exactly. We all want, a pretty similar sort of drawing board
Definitely.
out of life, you know?
Yeah, and we all have the same core needs. We all want to be loved. We all want to contribute.
Exactly.
We all want to help others. We all want to have a healthy family and healthy economy so that our businesses can thrive, our children can thrive, and the future, not only of our children, but our children's children can thrive.
Exactly. And I mean, I think that's a big point, especially with isolation and sort of separating and kind of confining and you know, maybe the sort of nihilism sort of view of not, oh, well, you know, my voice doesn't really matter, or, oh, you know, what's my vote really going to count for?
Yeah.
I think, you know, that really affects our health, and talk about the whole health ecosystem, because we all want to be, you know, a cog in the whole thing. We all want to play a part. We all want to get involved. You know, if there's someone building something, even as a kid, you know, you can watch kids, you can watch your own kids. If your kids, one or two kids are building something, what happens? Curiosity. I want to be involved.
Totally.
I want to add value.
Totally. And we've got to actually really change up that mentality, because that mentality develops an apathy. You know, who am I? I'm too little. What can I do? It's a really poor mentality that I think has been slowly brainwashed or put into people. And it needs to stop, because people these days, you find they get more passionate about their footy team winning or losing the grand finals than what's actually affecting our society.
Yep.
And so they need to get on with being and developing a passion beyond self, to ensuring that they are passionate, excited, integrated, do vote, do get involved in the things that shape our society, like politics.
Yep.
Because we know that with certain policies in politics, it affects our health, it affects our freedom, it affects our human rights.
Exactly.
And they need to have a voice, even if it's just through voting, to make sure that those votes count. Because if they don't do that, because of apathy, because they're not interested in looking at who's doing what, it's too complicated. Politics could be like a different language, like a foreign language.
Yes, yeah,
you know, with all the different terms.
Yeah.
And people get lost in those systems, and they develop this apathy attitude, and they kind of go, I don't know who to vote for. They do donkey votes, which is a waste of vote, rather than actually going, well, what's this party about? What do they stand for?
Yes. What are their principles?
What are their principles?
Yes.
Can I actually find some common grounds with some people that are real people that have stood up to say we'll represent people's voices and the community's voices in Parliament, versus career politicians that have just learned how to manage and manipulate that system and reutilize that resource for their own benefit rather than the benefit of the many.
Yeah, and I think when you come out of the disconnect of, you know, I'm not involved, I can't be involved, that person's up on that pedestal, I can't quite get there. When you come out of that and you realize we're all connected, then you start to look at the person, okay, this person's the Prime Minister, but let's unveil different parts. You know, he's also a human, he's also got kids, he's also these different qualities, he's also got different sort of things that push him, different sort of maybe religious ideologies or whatever it is. And then you can look at everyone as humans instead of this pedestal that I can't quite attain to, and there's something else, you know, so I can't treat them or think of them that they might have bad days, they might have some bad thoughts, they might have some, you know, things that are troubling them in private. They come out on public and they look, you know, fully, you know, edited, perfect, looking great, but, you know, they're also humans too.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very great point, to keeping it real and making sure that there is common grounds.
Yes.
Because if you put them on a pedestal, the next thing you're going to do is put them in the pits.
Yeah.
And the whole putting them in a pedestal or putting them in the pits is really disconnected.
Yeah.
Whereas if you see them as a real human being, you can cherish them, you can put them in your heart, even if you disagree with them. Even if your core values and their core values are completely opposites, you can still have respect for someone and have opposite of opinion or opposite of belief systems. And it's a good one that you picked, because certain people have certain things driving them and driving their behavior, and it may not always be to the best of everybody.
Yes.
And so we've got to be mindful of that and monitor that.
Exactly.
And find the common grounds.
Yeah, and always understand what someone's motivation is. I think that's
exactly.
really important. What are the, and I think what you talked about this earlier was, you know, when you look at the starting point of an organization or what drove them at the start, that's where you really understand some of the things that they're you know, they're kind of advocating for, and maybe where they've gone off the beaten track. I mean, I think Google's principle was something against evil. There was a little quote, like it was, you know, against evil in the world, and it was quite interesting for a search engine or a company or a company, technology company like that, to come out with those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I think with people, and you get to the source, what is their motivation? And then I think you can always come back to, I think where we started was always a good place, where you started as a politician.
The intentions.
Yeah, exactly. You're starting intentions, you're starting motivations. The company was built on these good values, but what happened along the way? Things got complex, things got, there were problems arose that we couldn't get into, and 1 and 2 and 3, and then eventually now I find myself all the way down at this end, but I've got to keep it going. I think you've got to come back to what are those motivations.
Yes.
And then you can truly understand, and I think the principles in the Health Australia Party really allow us to be able to see who those leaders are and the motivations they have. And, the fact that they are people like us, and, in today's day, you can connect online on all these social media platforms to these people that to you seem like etheric, other sort of beings that are
celestial
that don't they don't poo, or they don't they don't do the things that you do and have the same mindset issues or struggles. I think with a party that's a little bit more authentic, it's a real breath of fresh air in today's day, where a lot of times politicians are quite out of touch. Sorry, not sorry, but that's a fact.
Well, thank you, Kyle, because that is true. And I think if you're looking for real people that are representing people's view and voices, you can't get more real than Health Australia Party. And we're actually looking for people that are willing to stand up and step up and go, you know what, I'm willing to either become a member to the Health Australia Party, run as a candidate in the next state election or federal election, and actually participate. And if they look through our policies and go, I align with this, and this, but I actually want to make some changes here. I want to integrate a little bit more. We will take that on board and we'll change our policies to ensure that they are harmonizing with our community views. So that you can't get more real than that.
Exactly. No, I love it. I really appreciate it. And I think, for everybody watching and everyone at home, if you can support the Health Australia Party, or if you're just interested in the Health Australia Party, we'll have a link down in these video descriptions. But it's just, something else out there. I think a lot of people might be feeling like, where can I connect? I'm a bit different than, Bob, Sally, and, Jane. I'm a bit different than the community that I'm with, but I can't really find other people to connect with that have the same values, that actually really, believe in self-reliance and taking care of your health, and have an understanding of, where we have come from, and are not robotic, and I think it's when I discovered you, Bass, I think I was like, wow, there's this whole Health Australia Party, this whole organization, there's all these people coming together, and before that I didn't think that something like this existed, or the potential for something like this existed. So I think it really breathes new life into our own purposes and our own values, and us being able to come together as a community with those like-minded people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your support, Carl.
No worries. Thank you. Appreciate it, Bass.
Thank you.
Cheers.